Hello and welcome. It is 6 o'clock and it is Wednesday. Welcome to the 6 o'clock club. Well, we're here. It's Wednesday. We weren't here Monday and we weren't here Tuesday, thanks to
We were
technical
here
issues.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
We
but
were here
but but
Tuesday. It's
the
just
internet,
everybody else wasn't here Tuesday.
the internet was not playing game. So before I'll quickly go into that and what the plan is moving ahead with that. Got obviously a guest and a familiar face. You all know Kristian. Hello, Kristian. Chat.
Hello.
But a new face for you up here. It is someone I've known for a very long time, although we don't chat as often as perhaps we should.
Totally
Um,
agree.
it is Adam. Um, Introduce yourself. I mean, I think that's probably the best way. You've got more
Sure.
words than me about you.
So my name's Adam. I'm known on the internet primarily as Adam Wessex. I run as a general manager, MC, and professional wrestler for a variety of promotions up and down the country, and even in the Isle of Wight. I'm also a lifelong role-playing fan. I've done LARP. I'm generally a GM, I'm getting a bit more of player time now as well, and very keen to be here. I've also just want to say, for those who don't know, Andy has saved me in the past when I turned up his house needing to have a pirate LARP outfit. And just to clarify, he lives many hours drive away from me, and they were able to provide outfits for my wife and I at the drop of a pin. It was amazing.
I mean, doesn't everybody have? I mean, when I say a pirate costume, I mean, we're all familiar with my favourite NPC being Captain Dove. You're probably beginning to learn some of my guilty secrets now. That maybe what I'm wearing is the costume, and normally I am going around. Hello,
Walking around in a
shipmates.
tricorn.
Yeah, yeah,
Saying,
I can,
hello, shipmates.
I can
absolutely.
picture you on the bow of a ship. To be
Yeah,
fair,
yeah.
I can picture you leaning over the side of a ship with a bottle of rum in hand.
Yes, I'm not going to comment on that at all. Um, so before we start asking you some questions, Adam, I just kind of want to sort of apologise, but also mention that yeah, the reason why the 6 o'clock club didn't happen on Monday is that we have now got sort of some conflict of scheduling. So moving forward, there won't be directly a 6 o'clock club on Monday, but I'll do a pre-record which will be this week at Twisted Narrative. It will list all the games that we're running and just update you for that. And then yesterday, I don't want to get into trouble by naming internet providers, but one of them went down. We think it really, really affected it. Both me and Kristian tried our very best. We were ready, and we had a magnificent conversation off air. And I don't think we're ever going to be able to replicate
No.
that
It would have
because
been great if we'd have filmed it.
yeah, yeah,
We could have just recorded it anyway. We should. Well, now we
it's
know for
too
the future.
late.
Just it's too
It's
late
late.
now. That magic's gone.
It
We'll never
has.
get back to that
Um,
moment.
but we have. I say this. I am double checking that I've done the volume and that we are actually live and it's
We
all
are.
working
We're
because
fine.
like
We're fine.
it wouldn't be the first time. And finally, just a heads up because I said I wouldn't mention it because I mention Shadow Dark every other sentence, but we
What's
will be
Shadow
doing
Dark, Andy?
Shadow Dark. Let me tell you, join the club. Um, we will be doing a pre-record tonight of Tales from the Smoke, Shadow Dark. Tech gods willing, it will be recorded and we'll upload it to YouTube tomorrow. So I'm very excited about that. Firstly, it's my homebrew setting, which is Tales from the Smoke, which more and more of you become sort of familiar with. And secondly, um, I'm going to be very interested to see. There's been not criticisms, but questions asked whether Shadow Dark is just a dungeon crawler. And tonight, I'm not going to run it just as a dungeon crawler. I'm going to run it the way that I run any games, and hopefully you'll get to see the system, you'll get to see people having fun, and then you can make up your own decisions, but pre-record of the actual play, it's going to be I can't wait. I'm very, very excited. So that's 5 minutes of ignoring our guest star. The rest of the time is over to you, sir. I think a straightforward question first is I know of a few gems that run wrestling RPGs that they do exist out there and they have incredibly good fun doing it. Obviously, there is theatrics in wrestling. We also mentioned it is a sport; it's physical as well. But did your role playing help you with like getting into character? I mean, how much do you draw?
Massively. So hugely. I mean, one of the big things that apart from being told sometimes I need to dial some of my theatrics down. Is when I first started wrestling, I'm 40. I'm not the youngest. I'm not the most agile. I'm not the strongest. Um, and when you're in a collection of independent wrestlers, you kind of need something to make you shine out more. But one of the things I've never had a problem with is, you know, doing the talking, doing the character, being the evil Machiavellian villain, or being, the stand-up hero. And that's what we need to do in the wrestling world to get the crowd onto our side. It's exactly the same as when you're DMing. You need to pull everyone in and you need to make them get behind you or hate you. And it's exactly the same for that. One of the things that wrestling, I think, helped the most with is actually what I was able to give back, where some of these ridiculously talented wrestlers that we have, and by the way, we really do have some ridiculously talented young wrestlers, they struggle with the character part.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to sit there to drag them off and play RPGs with them and let them get into that idea of playing a character. Although we didn't choose the most standard wrestling game, we actually chose All Flesh Must Be Eaten,
Right.
which is an amazing zombie game for anyone who hasn't played it. But they released an add-on called Zombie Smackdown. So you've got the in-ring you've got in-ring wrestling with zombies, and then you've got the out-of-ring kind of day-to-day character build-up and everything else. And yeah, it really helped some of our guys kind of get out of themselves.
Yeah.
And it's something I'm seeing more and more often as I've kind of broadened where I've traveled to with wrestling. A lot more wrestlers I found are really keen fans of different RPGs, and I think it's for the same reason. It helps you build the skills that you need to do in the ring.
Yeah. I mean, I guess kind of improv is the thing, really, isn't it? I mean, how do you approach your character? Do you like as a GM, do you kind of rehearse some lines in your head, or do you just get into character and you are that character and things come out of you?
So it's a mixture, really. So the primary one is so Adam Wessex, which is what I'm generally used for. I'm the general manager or GM of ACW Pro Wrestling based down in Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Paul. And there, my character is a horrible, nefarious villain. You can tell because I wear guy liner, the instant sign that you're a bad guy. And for that one, we very rarely have to do like pre-prepared promos. We do sometimes. It's generally just improv.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, wrestling has choreography in it, and it has bits that are planned, and it also has things that are completely free flowing.
Yeah.
And with both of those, anything can go wrong. And similar for me in the way that I gem games, I think if you plan too much, if something goes wrong, it's really hard to get your head back into it. If you just got kind of, well, I know I need to do this bit, and this bit, and everything else, we'll just see what happens. It's a lot easier to kind of adapt. And I find it really fun though. It's I was saying it. I used to do a lot of LARP, and I feel it really scratches a lot of my LARP itch.
Yeah. It's because of the shop and commitments there. I had to stop doing a lot because I just didn't have any time, and I have to say I miss it, and my fitness misses it. I am so unfit now. I used to when I used to run it. I was incredible. I was literally doing it every weekend, sort of Friday night through to Sunday night, and we were we were running it, so like lugging all of the kit across countrysides and setting encounters, and then the more physical encounters. I've never been so fit.
I do miss so wrestling is only for a handful of hours on the night.
Yeah.
I do miss the my primary LARP was Lorien Trust.
Yeah.
I'm a tarantula, and some of the 3 days, 4 days of just absolute insanity.
Yeah.
You know, it's an experience you don't get anywhere else. Also did Empire, which was much more relaxed but still quite fun.
Yeah.
So I'm a complete LARP newbie. I've never LARPed before, and I it's going to sound a bit stupid, but I know it's sort of going around with sort of foam weapons, and you know, is there a system there? Is there like a you know, do you get character sheets and things like that?
Yeah, very much so. So you get full character sheets. You have a leveling up system. For example, there's a crafting system for both the ones I've spoken about as well. And some of the smaller, because Empire and Lorien Trust, I believe, is still the two biggest in the UK. Some of the smaller LARPs, where they're not fest LARPs, have ridiculously, incredibly convoluted leveling up systems. But LT and Empires is quite straightforward, but they've both got some really interesting things. So LT has rituals, which are basically you put on a performance, and depending on how you do that performance and if you follow the rules of the magic system, you can create magical items or imbue people to be magical. And if you're in Empire, they have ritual magic, which is you have to go research it, but then it's got set rules and things you can activate. But they have a full downtime system where LT doesn't. But I heartily recommend, if you've never been to LARP, go ahead. And if you go to LT, join the Tarantulas. They're the absolute best faction. And who wants to be a boring good guy anyway?
Me.
No, be a morally ambiguous person instead. It's way more exciting.
No. The thing is, I always know whenever I play RPGs, and I will say I've got some characters in Andy's games now, because until I came back to the Twisted Narrative server, I was a forever GM. And I find that whenever I create a character to start with, I always create a goody two shoes. So I've made a conscious effort recently to make more bad characters, because I do find it interesting. I mean, do you prefer playing good to bad or bad to good?
I actually primarily play paladins.
Me too.
So but I think for me, I don't like one-dimensional characters. When I do get to play, I love having something. I always try and do something different than I've done before. Take, for example, Werewolf. So I was playing Werewolf. So we didn't get to play it. A GM was going to run it. We all got set up to go ahead. And I was like, well, what haven't I ever done before? And instead, I'm playing as the unicorn werewolves. And I'm playing a complete fluffy, cuddly healer who loves everybody and just wants everyone to be happy.
Apart from Kindred.
Yeah, well, even though he understands that they're abominations and that Skya doesn't like them, but it's like I've not played that kind of aspect before.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important thing, is especially when you're a forever GM and you kind of you've kind of played enough characters that you from your own repertoire. It's nice to try and break out of that.
Yeah.
But probably my default is a paladin with an edge.
Okay. Yeah. I watched a video a while back where someone had suggested try not to make a character that has an edgy backstory or a tragic backstory. So the last couple of characters I've created don't have a sad backstory. They are fairly just just quite happy to be me, really.
I mean, when I'm saying edge, I don't really mean something edgy, but just something not just to follow all of the standard tropes. To make it a bit of a tweak.
So you mentioned about playing a few different games there. What's your favourite one to play?
So favourite one to run is Iron Kingdoms. So they used to have their own system for it. It's a steampunk world. I love it. It's a steampunk world with mechs and goblins, and it just hits so many of my tick boxes. They've recently changed it to a D&D system. Actually, they just joined in 5e. So which I'm a bit sad about, because I do want more role-playing system to get exposure, and it's very easy to grab everyone for D&D and trying to like introduce them to other systems. But my favorite system that I am absolutely obsessed with the world with as a player is Slay Industries, where I'm playing basically a paladin, but I'm basically playing a Shaptar, which is kind of like a cross between a predator and a Klingon, and you're all about honor and upstanding rights and things. But the Slay world is really edgy and really grim dark. So like trying to balance this wonderful, like I must be honorable character when you're part of a group of people who are given missions which sometimes cross the morally ambiguous line, is really fun.
Yeah.
And we've got a really varied group as well. It's hilarious.
And that's Slay spelt SLA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
S.L.A.
I mean, for people that are unfamiliar with the system, tell us a little bit sort of about it. I mean, I'm assuming it's still Nightfall Games.
Yep, still
Yeah,
Nightfall.
yeah.
Yeah, is that the original?
No, this is. I say I've got the original. Heather
Yep.
has got the original,
Nice.
except that what's hers is mine. Because she used to know the guys there. She used to know Dave
I
and
had
Jared. And,
no idea about that. Yeah.
I mean, I've got the books over there somewhere. I can kind of they're battered and much loved, but I love their work. I love Nightfall, and I do like Slay, but it's not one of the ones that I've really shown my community. So please, in your own words.
Well, firstly, I think it's what's it won? An Emmy award.
Yeah.
And the world they use is called the World of Progress. And it's basically if you imagine like a futuristic fantasy world, like 40K, for example, but absolutely gone to ruin, absolutely gone wrong, with a massive corporate overlord. The main game is normally set in a place called Mort City, which is this massive, massive city. But it's full of serial killers, cultists pulling in these things from this other world that even coming into contact with can corrupt you, as well as all these type of monsters that kind of are brought up from either pollution or biogenetics or science gone wrong. So you've got machines, which are basically robots that want to skin humans and wear their flesh as clothes because they want to be more human, for example. And you play as operatives working for the person in charge of the city. So the head of this horrible dystopian planet, you're working for them, just much lower down. And the thing I really like about it is the world's really involved and really detailed. So, and there's a lot of weird bits to it. So it's not just about being out there and being a murder monkey, because you can be sent on any type of mission, but also you're always watched because the entire world is covered with cameras. So but not you're watched by the public who tune in to see what you're doing. So you have to kind of put on a show, and you get bonuses and rewards for that as well. And if you do really well, you get sponsors, and they have something called bullet tax. So having sponsors really helps. It's hard to tell you too much about the story because there's a lot of stuff that would ruin it. And I partly suggest that if you want to play Slay, do not read the GM section. Leave it to GM. I've been having to hold back from reading a lot of stuff because I'm so much enjoying it. They have is races. You've got standard humans, you've got basically crazy alcoholic drug addicted Glaswegians with power claymores, you've got giant bioengineered monsters who are like 10 foot tall and just massive muscle. You've got others monsters that can literally like turn predator and fade into the background. You've got light sonics and dark sonics, and all kinds of other stuff in between. I will say, I do think the rules can be a bit janky. It uses very much the similar rule set to the Terminator game that they've just recently released as well. But the world itself is incredible. They've started releasing more and more books about it in the background as well. Cannibal Sector, which is like the world outside the city. Hunter Sheets, which is loads of like the serial killers and like named characters and things. And it has a quick start free PDF as well.
Yeah.
So always a good start.
Always good. Yeah.
But really interesting world. Heartily suggest you check it out. It's really seems to be under the radar. I was trying, we're playing online, and I was trying to find pictures, to make a token. And it's really hard, apart from the official stuff. So if any of you amazing fan artists out there want to make some stuff, you will be Googled, I promise you.
And a shout out to Dave, who's one of Nightfall games. He's a fantastic artist as well. His imagery is unbelievable. And you kind of mentioned Glaswegians. They're still based up in Scotland, are the designers, and it's got that. There's something about, I'm not going to try and sound racist here, but Scottish designers in the fact that they're very grounded. They've got such great sort of ways of writing. It's very solid and kind of subversive, sort of politically as well. And it's got all of this, and I'm not just talking about Nightfall Games here, of course. I'm talking about a lot of people that have written for comic books and the like, that unbelievably solid writing, and sort of they've got an amazing way of looking at one thing and then twisting it to give you a completely different angle on it. And I very much, the book that I was waving at you is for
Demon Dog, right?
Yeah. And I kickstarted this, and it's just a thin book, but again, it's just full of very punk kind of punk demon attitude. And I just love all of their stuff. So a big shout out to them, and I totally understand. Maybe I should look into running something along those lines.
Oh yeah, no, I can imagine you being incredible at the system. It's such an interesting one.
I do like, I like my dark future stuff anyway, and I do like my sort of, I suppose, is it grimdark? I suppose that is the title for it, really.
Yeah, as much as Games Workshop are the horrible corporate overlords that we should all avoid, it is a great term and it does survive. Dystopian futures are one of my favourites. The other
call them futures these days.
Yeah, sadly. The other system I've been playing quite a bit of as a player again is Avatar. As in the based on the Nickelodeon,
the last Airbender.
The last.
Oh, wow! So what's that like?
Well, it really feels similar to me in a lot of ways to Blades in the Dark that we were talking about before we came on air, where we've played whole sessions without rolling dice, but it's so much is about the emotions of, you're playing teenagers. You're not playing adults, and you are only playing good guys. The rules literally state you are all good guys because you're playing a cartoon. And it does that thing that Blades do, which is like stuff that doesn't matter to the storyline, we're just going to fast track over. But it's the interactions between your characters, and it's got the same things that Blades do, where when you character creation, you have a link to other people, and each class has its own things that it's trying to do and its own problems to try and overcome. Very much like they're called playbooks in Avatar. But you're in this cartoon world. And you don't have to be a bender. You can be anything. And the bit I really like is there is no difference between any of the bending and tech or martial arts in terms of functionality. It's just how you overcome something. So if you are beating up some mooks, an airbender might blow them out the way, a martial arts might beat them up. But for the games, as far as the game's concerned, it doesn't matter. That's just part of the narrative.
Yeah. And
it's so much focused on making the narrative the core, and it's great. Really fun system. I love Slay, but after a Slay session, I'm not necessarily a happy bunny. I walk away from Avatar with a grin every time. It's a really refreshing thing to play.
Does anyone get to be the Avatar?
No. So, the GM, the storyteller, does. So yeah, you're basically always you're in the world the Avatar, so you can play pre the first Avatar, well, first
Yep.
Nickelodeon. We're playing in the age of Korra.
Okay,
So
yeah.
mostly because it means we get slightly more steampunk, and I love
Yeah.
steampunk.
Yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of different sections, and you can meet the avatars and you can learn from them, and you can be involved with them. But the story is primarily about your group of heroes and what they get up to.
Yeah. That's really good. I'm a massive Avatar fan. Loved the TV series. And I saw when it came up on Kickstarter, and I thought I should probably back that, like I do with a lot of projects, and then I promptly forget.
I don't own the books. A friend of mine is the one that kickstarted it, and
Yeah.
I can tell you the quality of the production is
Mm.
unbelievable. It's stunning. The whole book is amazing. If you see a chance to grab it hardback, do so.
Yeah.
It's a book that I would be happy to have on my shelf, even if I wasn't playing. It's that nice quality, and it's full of really nice art as well, done in the the exact style you'd expect. And you can have a sky bison as a pet. So
Well, then I'm sold. Just get on my Sky Bison and cry yip yip, and away I go.
exactly.
Elsa in chat has just said this is another one of the books that she kickstarted and has yet to play. Elsa kickstarts an awful lot of products, don't you? We'll have to start burning through some of those books, running them.
Don't burn them. You play them, Andy.
No, I didn't say burn the books. I said burn through them. Yeah, so it's good. And another game that we mentioned, I think briefly off air, is a game that I'm running on Monday for Kristian, which is Feng Shui. And that narratively has a similar feel from what you were describing. I think I've never played Avatar. Yeah, sorry, come.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's any system that has the rule reload between scenes.
Yeah.
Is a great one. No, I love it. It's a system I played a long time ago, and a system I ran a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think they're on a new edition now. The last time I played.
Yeah,
it,
it's hit a second edition. I don't think there's a third. I mean, we use the rules from it. They are perhaps a little dated. So again, we use the basics of the rules because I think that's quite nice, but we occasionally don't want to do any of the mathematics with that, so we kind of skip through that.
Yep.
But the scenario I've put together for Kristian and Rachel and a few others, I think Ben's going to join us now. It's called the Big Bang Theory, so it's going to be set in Vegas, and it's going to be set in a comic convention. So there's going to be a lot of cosplay, and you won't know who's who or what.
Everyone's Deadpool. Everyone will be Deadpool.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So that's going to be an interesting one, as you as dragons have to go to this Comic-Con for a job. Are you planning to play the same character as before, Kristian? Or
no, I won't be playing Bud Light.
Oh
now.
no!
I will
Yeah. Go for it.
I will be. I have got an idea of a character. I like the idea of the grizzled cop, kind of not. I'll admit I've been watching a lot of Columbo, so I'm trying to find a way that I can wrangle myself a Columbo-esque character in there.
Yeah.
Affable, not really someone that fights too much, someone that uses the brain.
Yeah.
But probably will be able to fight.
You're not going the Max Payne gun fu style, then trying to take the more reasoned level.
Well, I mean, it was either that, or I was going to go with sort of a John Wick-esque gruff, talking like this, whoa, sort of thing, and make them a gambler. But I can see a gambler at a comic convention saying, "So these are worth things. These are worth money. These aren't worth anything.
I mean,
they're just comics." And watch Andy's face. I say these things just to rile up Andy.
No, I'm more than happy to run an entire session with you playing a gambler, discovering Magic the Gathering, and buying booster after booster. Yeah.
I want to play, as Ankara just said, just one more thing. I want to play an affable sort someone that tries to get on everyone's good side because he sees the best in everyone, just like Columbo does. I do a terrible Columbo impression. Just one more thing.
That's one of my major weaknesses as a GM is every time I try and do any type of foreign accent, I just come out as Russian. So so that's definitely something I need to work on.
So are you? So again, actually, it's a good GM question. Do you do sort of regional accents when you do GMing, or do you stick with different tones?
It depends on if I think it's something within my wheelhouse. Is the big thing. But I do think voices are important. It depends. So with this world now, where we do so much more of our role playing online, I think accents are more and more important. Actually, it's probably something I'd be interested to know about your viewpoints on. I'll get back to it.
Yeah.
But I still think physical roleplay is the best in person. I love when I say physical roleplay, I love doing things like when someone says they're going to crawl into a tunnel. I'm like, okay, cool. Here's my arm. Here's the top of the tunnel. Show me how you're crawling in. I ran for Ravenloft. I was doing we had a session where we were having a meal with Strahd. So I went to a friend's house and we set up a table and we had the wine and we had little. I got printed off stickers for all the Ravenloft wines and put them over the wine bottles. And I'm like, okay, so everyone's begins. I'm like, you are welcome to drink the wine out of character because everybody wasn't touching any of the food or drink.
Yeah.
But stuff like that where you can kind of get people into their characters a bit more. And you don't always need to. It depends on your audience, right? Sometimes you're with a incredibly experienced group, and sometimes you're with a mixture or people who aren't. And I find that having that little bit of physicality gets people into their characters.
I think it leads from being a sort of live action role player as well, because it comes kind of naturally to you. I think if you've done quite a lot of LARPing, sort of around the table and having those extra props and being slightly more immersive, it just feels right, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. I used to write plot for LT a long time ago, and I think definitely my role playing, tabletop role playing influenced my plot writing. But I think you're right that probably it's affected it back the other way as well.
Yeah. In terms of accents, I can't do accents. I literally.
You can do Brummy.
Well, I can do Brummy, but that is about it. I mean, I can't even pronounce character names, so trying to do accents, I don't know whether I'm dyslexic or word. I don't know. There's something in my psyche that finds it very difficult to visualize words phonetically.
Yeah.
So I tend to do gesturing, which I have to say is suboptimal when you're online and not on video. But I still do it, even though no one can see me.
Yeah, I'm the same. If I left my hands up high, you'd see them shaking around. I need to communicate with my body as much.
But yeah, I do try and change the tone of my voice occasionally to indicate a sort of different person. But what I find really helps is catchphrases. So certain NPCs like good old Captain Dove, as we all know, hello shipmates. When he starts off with that, everybody knows it's Captain Dove speaking, and you've got other things as well that you can bring in for other NPCs.
Hats.
Yeah, hats are good. Again, suboptimal when you don't have a video camera and you're online, but I do wear hats as well. Mainly because my hair is so incredibly long that it gets stuck in the. It's okay. Kristian's got envy now. But it gets stuck in my headphones, and I'm just all tangled up, and I can't do anything. It's the main reason for wearing the cap.
Yeah. I wonder if I could ask a question from you two, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Because so one of the things that I find really difficult, having been in the online world, and you've got a lot more experience with this than most people in this world, I believe, is I find it really difficult getting my groups. So when you're doing physical role, in-person role play, whenever you're having that one-to-one or one to a small group of people section, everyone else is talking, and they kind of learn their characters organically through that interactive role play that happens in the background while other stuff is happening. And I really find that with online role play, it's kind of one person speaking at a time. doesn't matter what. So you kind of lose that, and I'm finding it difficult for my players to get to kind of organically know each other's backstories without me having to do something to kind of help that along the way.
Yeah.
I just want to know what your thoughts and experiences were of that.
It is more problematic, obviously. But what I've noticed is the longer a group has played together, the more sort of comfortable they get allowing people to have their moments. So we ran Vampire last night, and Kristian was in that, and Elsa, who's in the chat, was in it
And
as
Rachel,
well.
who's
And
in the chat as
Rachel,
well.
who's in the chat as well. So 3 of the Vampire, and everybody is super generous with their patience. And I believe, and you can. All 3 of you can sort of agree or deny this. You're actually interested as well in listening to those. So Vampire is, the party gets split all the time because people have got, not necessarily working against each other, but they've got different agendas, they've got different skill sets and the like. So there is quite a lot of time that there is a 30-minute slot of 1 or 2 people role playing, like learning the background of the character and listening, and they're paying great attention to that, and you kind of know that because it's brought up later on in the game. But in terms of characters having a conversation outside of that, I use a virtual tabletop called Fantasy Grounds Unity, and there's a chat feature in that, and you can either whisper to other characters or you can just make it public view. And the more experienced players who feel comfortable with that, they role play in the background, having sort of conversations and like that. I mean, it is problematic. I mean, we've gone from sort of just pre-COVID, where we were just running purely face to face. We closed the shop because the rental had gone up and we didn't want to sign a new lease, but we spilled over from running games and was hiring other venues to do that. And then I didn't know anything about online play at all. I hadn't even considered it at that point. And then 6 months after the shop, sort of March time, COVID happened, lockdown happened, and it was like, well, we literally can't meet up. Do you want to try and move it online? And we moved it online, and then I was doing a lot of theatre of the mind first, which I'm very comfortable with, but I felt for systems like 5th Ed, I wasn't giving my very best, because 5th Ed is a tactical combat game when it comes down to people wanting to go, well, actually I want to be 120 feet away, not 60 feet away, so I can do stuff and they can't. So I invested in Fantasy Grounds Unity for battle maps more than anything else. Then it's got all of these neat other sort of functions as well. But we've gone from that point of my community being from Nottingham, all the players that used to meet up face to face, to now where, Kristian, you were, Nottingham, but now you are to the north.
Coast.
Yeah, and we've got people right around the country and also around the world now. And it's actually become difficult to go back to face and face because people like Kristian and Rachel
are not driving.
they're going to drive every Sunday to come down to the game. But there are some people don't like online play, and I totally understand why, 100%. But some people have also said, you know what, sort of the 7 o'clock evening games, I didn't really like having to get home from work, having a shower, getting changed, eating out, getting to the shop or the venue, and then having to get home again ready for work tomorrow. It's much better for me to just get home, sit in my comfy lounge clothes, and just enjoy the game. So there's pros and cons, I think, payoffs.
I agree. I think it's definitely pros and cons to both.
I like not having to tidy my house before a load of people turn up, because I run a game with the same group of players now for like the last 7 years.
Nice.
So, and it's been pretty much consistent week on week. And I would actually say I found with those players they didn't interact, except for when they were interacting with the game. There wasn't that interaction with each other.
Yeah.
And it's getting there, but they've a lot of them have come from a war gamers background. So there's much more of that in there. And I found online it's actually been better because I've been able to give them more time in the spotlight and not see someone eating, and which I don't like, or watch someone on their phone, or worry that it's 10 o'clock. It's getting to 10 o'clock. You all need to get out of my house now because I have to let the dog out, and I don't want you in my house anymore. And being online has been so much easier for me to focus on the game as a GM and focus on individuals, and kind of help people. I think it's given people I can give people a spotlight in my group, and they can really start to shine as a character, and everyone can learn about their character. Admittedly, in a solo session, but quite often they go together and they pair up and they do things. And I found that that's actually helped them certainly a lot, and it's helped me, as I said, because then I don't have people in my house.
I think that's actually something that has helped. So I at the beginning of the pandemic, I went a little bit over the top and arranged 7 nights a week doing role play because I was worried that me and my wife wouldn't get to socialize. Andy's laughing at this point because my wife is not a fan of social, and she ended up just going, "Why have you done this? You're making me socialize more than we did in real life." I'd stop. So it's now cut down to a much more sensible amount. But one of the things that came out from some of the people, my players, was the ones who were neurodiverse actually found it easier online in a lot of respects because you have so much more control. If you struggle with loud noises, you can control the volume. You sadly can't turn me down in real life. I'm always loud. If you struggle with the bright background, you can turn it off or you can minimize it. And that's something I never really thought about. Was I've always considered role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, to be one of the most easily approachable and easily inclusive games in the world. But that's because I didn't think about these other things that other people struggle with. And that's something, as you're saying, about like where some players are finding it easier that way, that it's easy, it really has made a big difference.
Yeah. And I think it's flourished. It's certainly helped me during sort of lockdown and those COVID sort of moments. And
I wouldn't have got through lockdown without it, I don't think.
I like to think that a lot of other people, sort of our community, your community, it really helped us all kind of to have that little bit of escapism, which I think was very important, not just in those times, but I think it's important in day-to-day lives, really. There's a lot of stresses and pressures on everybody. And to not just have escapism, I think, and I kind of have thought about this a lot, it's also about having a degree of control as well. There is variance in role play games depending which ones you play. You roll dice, but you as the player choose whether to roll the dice or not. You choose to do a skill check, you choose to go into combat, and there's a lot more control. And you also know the odds as well. You also know, well, I've got plus
tell me the odds.
Yeah, I've got plus 10 to hit here. It doesn't matter. I'm going into combat because I should. Apart from Kristian, of course, whose dice rolls always fail him. It's you are the unluckiest
It's why
roller.
It's why I'm glad we do roll online. It seems online's a lot fairer to me. But yeah, when it comes to rolling in real life, it
Didn't you
shouldn't
say
happen.
you were a developer? How can we trust you with the online dice roll?
Oh, you can't. I know they're all pseudo random numbers. They're not real random numbers. Whereas rolling a normal die is a lot more random. So yeah, no, I love the pseudo randomness of being online. It's great. I can actually hit stuff for once.
Are you the type of person? Do you punish your dice when they fail you?
I would have many dice that would be constantly punished if that were the case. We have an agreement that the dice can now be in retirement in a bag somewhere, and I'll never roll them again.
Well, we are hitting that time where I need to go off and run the actual play. Did I mention it's Shadow Dark? I think I might have done. So I mean,
Shadow what?
Shadow what? Yeah, indeed. Let's roll this up. Any final pass? I mean, firstly, thank you very much for coming on, and secondly, don't be a stranger. You're welcome back anytime. It's been fantastic, and I think we've only scratched the surface of the chat that we could have.
I'm sure we could talk for many hours.
Yeah. But have you got any sort of final thoughts for now? Anything you want to promote, wrestling wise or role play wise?
Yeah, sure. So my roleplay stuff is all just with my group of friends at the moment. But in terms of wrestling, my next show is literally on Saturday in New Milton, in the big field there. A bunch of wrestlers from across the UK are coming to put on a little bit of show. But I think the big one is if any of you are near Southampton. At the Empire Hall in Totton on May the 13th. I'm the MC for Pride and Honor Wrestling, prideandhonorwrestling.co.uk. And that is not only going to be an amazing wrestling show, but they're also raising money for Southampton Pride. So you'll be helping out a good cause as well.
Yeah.
So,
If you can send me those links and those socials, I'll put them in the
Sure.
comic section below so everybody's got access to them. And
do follow me. I'm Adam Wessex on Facebook. I don't talk about role playing much on there. I'm mostly being villainous, but it's always good to have some extra contact. So thank you.
No, absolutely. I say make sure you send me that link. Anything that you want in the comment section, I will make happen. So before we go, tomorrow we've got Chris English coming on as a guest from Evil Pigeon Games. Tomorrow he's launching another Kickstarter, and it is a supplement for 5th edition D&D again, and it's all about heists this time. So he'll be talking about that. He'll be talking about his other supplement that I did kickstart, and I've got a copy of it. And it's really, I really like his content. It's very thorough. There's a lot of information packed in there. So join us tomorrow to see me and Chris chat about his new Kickstarter. In the meantime, I want to say a big thanks from me, and a thanks to both Kristian and Adam here for spending a few minutes, almost an hour. It's amazing, but I am going to have to go because I've got another game to run. It's bye from me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, pleasure.
Goodbye, everybody.